My name is Dabney in Montgomery, born April 18th, 1923 in Selma, Alabama. I am the last of 5 children of Dred and Lula Montgomery in that same location. And they drafted me or sent me to the Tuskegee Airmen after my basic training, and I had, let us say, a couple of months in specialized training in supply. Really, the government found Tuskegee because it was a black institution that had a flying program for, of course, black people. And the government decided to use Tuskegee and its flying program to train these black pilots who wanted to fly. Now, there was a very brilliant and brave woman who was married to the President of the United States, Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt. And Mrs. Roosevelt went down and asked to be flown by a black pilot. And the first answer was no. In fact, they assigned her a white pilot to fly her. And she said, no, I don't want him. I want a black one. So they assigned her this black pilot who took her in the air and flew her around Alabama and landed her safely again at Tuskegee. She then went back to the White House and told her husband, who was President of the United States, I have been to Tuskegee and I have been flown by a black pilot, and I have seen the program and the progress that they are making. I feel safe, and I am sure that these fellows can fight and bomb and do whatever the assignment is. I want you, as President of the United States, to use your influence to make sure that these black pilots get complete training. And that's what he did. Now, here we are now in a war zone, southern Italy. Now, when they first sent us there, they didn't care for the protection that we were trained to do. Our pilot was trained to be fighter pilots, escort. Now something happened. The Germans' fighter planes started shooting down the B-17s and the B-24s, and they were losing them by the dozen. And of course, the question is, you have a group of black pilots down there, and we're losing B-17s and B-24s by the dozen daily. Why not put these fellows out and have them escort the bombers? Now, our tails was painted red. Many of the pilots, the white pilots, said no, they didn't want to be escorted. However, it was a must that they get this protection. Now, General B.O. Davis, a tough man, I never saw him smile. He was a West Pointer, and while he was in West Point, they put the silent treatment on him. The silent treatment was, we will talk with you as long as you're in a classroom setting. But the moment you walk out of that door, nobody will speak to you. Other cadets had roommates. He had none. He was in this room alone. Nobody spoke to him outside of that classroom setting. Now this made him determined. This made him say to himself, I will not give up. I'll stay here and I'll do my best and I'll overcome all of this. And that's what he did. And believe it or not, when he graduated after 4 years, out of a class about, let us say, 225, 240 cadets, he was number 27. Went through that whole 4 years, no one speaking to him, and came out number 27 in this class of over 225. And that toughness he gave to us. He made soldiers out of us. And he came up with a new theory. Now, we're not out here to, as fighter planes as such. We're out here to protect bombers. And when you are assigned a bomber, you stick to that bomber. If the German in that fighter plane come and attack this bomber, you knock him out and come back to this bomber. And you stick with this bomber until he's in the free zone. And that was the plan. But with this theory, we did not lose a bomber. In fact, the men even sank a German cruiser with a fighter plane. And this was the first on record. We destroyed, 125, 130 fighter planes. And all at once, the planes started to return safely. One afternoon, we had a group of white pilots to come into the camp and say, we're looking for the red tails. You see, when you're flying 350 miles and 400 miles per hour with the P-51, you don't know who's in that cockpit because you get a mask on, et cetera, but you know the tails are painted red. And we told the pilot, the red tails, we are the red tails. You are the red tails, but you're black. No, we are black. Yes, we are black, but the tails are painted red. Wow. Then came the order for our Air Force to bomb Berlin. They requested the red tails to protect them as they flew over Berlin for the first time. 2 or 3 years or 4 years after the war was over, fella came and I was wearing a cap, Tuskegee Airman. He said, were you one of them? White fella, vested suit, tie. Yes, I wasn't a fighter. I supplied food and clothing to all the men that were fighters. He ran to me and put his arms around me. And in New York, somebody put the arm around you in the street. First thing you do, you grab your pocket. He said, no, you saved my father. And I'm gonna write home. In fact, I'm gonna telephone him tonight and tell him that I met one. I met a Tuskegee Airman because he talked about you all the time, how you saved his life. And he admires you very much. Now, before that happened, I was discharged, and outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in 1945, December, just before Christmas. When I got out of the taxi, I had been away from home for 2 years, 2.5 years. I had kind of forgotten about segregation, kind of. And I got out of the car and picked up my bag and started running into the railroad station in Atlanta. And as I started up the steps, now I'm just out of the armed forces, honorable discharge, everything. And this white cop threw up his arms. "You can't come in here, boy." "I can come in here." "You got to go around the back." "I go around the back?" "That's right. Only white people can come in this door." Okay, I went around the back. Got a train and went to Selma, Alabama. And early 1946, I said, I'm going down to register to vote. So I left home in Selma, Alabama, went to the Dallas County Courthouse, walked in, and when I walked in, I told the white woman behind the desk my name, that I had come to register to vote. I'm just out of the Army. I have my honorable discharge here. I have finished high school, and I had done 1 year of college at that point. I have never been arrested. And she said, I'm going to give you 3 applications. They must be filled out by 3 white men endorsing you that you are a good citizen. You get these filled out by these 3 white men and bring them back to me. What? Yes, that's what we have to do. So I got the application, went out and found 3 white men. This was in 1946, early 46. And each one gave me a lecture note. Boy, you have come back here and you're trying to vote. Don't start any trouble. I'm going to fill this out for you, but don't start any trouble. And I took the 3 applications, went back to the woman behind the desk. And she looked at them. They're good. You are a good Negro. Now, one more question I have to ask you, Dabney. Do you own $1,000 worth of property in the state of Alabama? No, I just got it armed forces. I'm still with mom and pop. I'm getting ready to go to college again. You cannot vote. That's the law in Alabama. You must own $1,000 worth of property before you can vote. There was a white boy standing right in back of me, just out of World War II. Same kind of experience. I moved away from the desk and went to the corner. And that white fellow walked up to her desk. I have come to register to vote. Okay, 1, 2, 3, fill these out. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, you're going through. And he went through. And I stood in that corner and said, what can I do to change this situation? I knew that I'm surrounded in an environment that is not right with God. That Jesus died for all of us. And he did not segregate. He loved everybody. So for this reason, I spent a lot of time in the church. And my preacher, pastor, told me in the Methodist Church that, look, why don't you go to college? When you go to college, I had been accepted, majored in religion, and become a preacher. The Lord has appeared to me, and He has told me to tell you to go into the ministry. I said, Reverend, you go back to the Lord and tell Him to come to me. I will not accept a second-hand calling to go into the ministry. God does not move without using you. Understand? He doesn't wing or throw something and thing change. He take people and change things. And when I went to college, majored in religion, Livingston College in Salisbury, North Carolina, instead of hearing a voice saying, come into the ministry, I heard a voice that says, when the law of the state conflict with the conscience of man, the law of the state should be peacefully broken. You are to go back to Selma, Alabama, and break segregated law. And don't get angry. Stand up and don't compromise. Accept whatever happened. I did discuss this with the dean of Hood Seminary. He was my mentor. This was 1949. 1949. And when I discussed this with him, he said, I cannot tell you to go. I cannot tell you not to go. I can only tell you to follow your conscience. Because if you go south at this time in Alabama and break the law, you might get killed. In fact, in all probability, you will get killed. However, if they kill you, you will die for a cause greater than life. That's it. I'm not going. I'm not going. I had my degree in religion. I'll get a degree in economics and a master's in economics and a PhD in economics and go back to the South and teach and elevate people, and this will be my way of changing. The voice said, that's what you're not supposed to do. 1949. This is what I am going to do. So I went, after my graduation from Livingston, to the University of Michigan and majored for a master's degree in economics and failed. The voice said, that's what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to do that. I say, I did it because of my conscience. I don't want to go back and face that danger. I'll try it again. I'll go to Wayne University and try it again. I've been knocked out here. I'll get up and try it again. I went to Wayne University. Failed again. Major in economics. Voice said, that's not what you're supposed to do. I had planned to get a PhD in economics by 57 and then make my contribution to the South and upgrade their thinking of the human race. Well, I have failed twice in this endeavor. I'll go back to the South and take an art. I'll go to Boston with this religious degree that I had just received, and I'm going to enroll at the Boston Conservatory of Music and study ballet. And when I become matured enough in ballet, I had already been offered a job to teach in the Selma High School. I'll teach social studies, but on the side, I'll teach ballet for any kid who does not want to study the athletic requirement. They would study ballet, and I would build a ballet team, and that kid, or those kids, would get credit for the requirement of the athletic. Makes sense, doesn't it? So I went. Now I started ballet at 30, and I was supposed to start, you're supposed to start ballet when you're 10. And I was putting 5 to 6 hours into that ballet every day, grinding. Now, there was a lady at the Union Methodist Church in Boston who said, I like you, I taught Sunday school there. I want you to be my godson. Yes, I'll accept being you as my godmother. Now I want you to meet my other godson. I want you two to get together. Okay. She invited me over that Sunday afternoon to meet her other godson. And I jumped off my bicycle, walked into her house, and she said, Dabney, I want you to meet my other godson, Martin Luther King Jr. and his fiancee, Scoretta Scott. We had a great dinner together, spent the whole afternoon together, and we became friends. I broke my left foot studying ballet. I was put in a cast from my knee down to my foot. And I said, while I was studying, working with this cast, I'll take a trip through Mother Africa, and maybe that experience of African experience of meeting, seeing people and how they do things, maybe that will cure me of this passion to go back to Selma. I caught a boat in Canada. We went to Germany with this group of students. And as we approached Germany, Berlin broke out in all hell, because you had that East Berlin broke out against West Berlin. And I went into Berlin in the middle of all that confusion. And when I got to the Brandenburg Gate alone, it was controlled by the British. You cannot go in. You go in, you'll be shot or maybe killed or whatever might happen to you. And we will not be responsible for you. As I'm a newspaper man, I'm going in to write an article. I told him a lie, but after he permitted me to go in, he said, look, if something happened to you, we're not coming in to get you. So I went in. He said, I don't care what you do, don't take any pictures. I went in and took 36 shots, came out without a scar on my back, and wrote. I said, I cannot tell a lie in this. I must write an article. So I wrote an article in 1953 to the Boston Globe of my experience in Berlin. And my friend read the article that they published in the Boston Globe. So I didn't tell a lie. I wrote the article and they accepted it and printed it. I was running, training or whatever. I was running from Selma. I left Berlin and joined a group of 23 white people that was going down through Spain into Africa and going across Africa to Egypt. And I joined them in Paris. And that's what we did. And as we traveled together, it was amazing, some of their opinion of what do the Negroes want? And they want what you have, freedom. That's all. These American white from Texas, Detroit, etc. And we traveled together for 3 months across North Africa. On the island of Mallorca, I was walking down, that's under Spain in the Mediterranean Sea. I was walking down the street and looked in a store, and there was a girl selling jewelry. And she looked at me, and I looked at her. I walked in, and we talked. Pepita was her name, for 30 minutes. And we exchanged addresses, and later became engaged. I tell you about that. When I left.
Hold on, I got to get you to Selma, and I got to get you here in the 21st century. How much are we doing on time? We're good. Did she eventually become your wife?
I haven't gotten to that yet.
I'm going to get a dime from you for every time you tell me that.
Now, what you gonna do with my story, huh? What you gonna do? you owe me something.
Okay, tell me about.
Well, we were together for about half an hour, and we exchanged addresses. And I got back with the group, and we went back over to North Africa and went across to Egypt. And there, after Egypt, we went into Athens, Greece. And when we checked in the hotel, I noticed a sign in English. Beethoven, Ninth Symphony, and the Greek Open Air Theater tonight at 8 o'clock or whatever time, with the Greek Symphony Orchestra and the Greek choir. I gotta go. So I went to this concert. They were sold out. And I had to climb a wall, and I went way up to the left of the stage. It was in August 1953. The night was full with a full moon and not a cloud in the sky. And the Greek, Athens Greek Symphony Orchestra with the symphony choir, they did this in German. And as I sat there that night, running from Selma, and the moon was full, and they got to the full movement, joy, the theme, Ode to Joy. something hit me sitting on the rocks, and my watch on my left arm jumped off my wrist and fell over a few feet from me. As I reached down to pick that watch up, I looked back into the sky and I saw a cloud of angels in that clear blue sky. And I heard something say, there is joy in the world in spite of what you're going through. Ode to joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Maybe the angels were not there, but I saw them dancing in the clear sky. And I picked up my watch and I was in another cloud. I got to go back to self. And I left, me and the group left, went into Turkey. And when we went into Turkey, I had another rich religious experience. I went into the Blue Mosque. It is by far the greatest mosque temple in the world. You can pop your finger like that in a corner, and that sound travels all over the structure, and it comes back to you. I did it with my hand, and I sat there and meditated. Okay, what made me meditate in a Muslim mosque? The Spirit of Christ. That's what made me meditate there. I came to New York and enrolled at Metropolitan Opera School of Ballet on 39th Street and Broadway. That's where they were in those days, 1954. Then I decided I still had this passion to go and break the law. Now, mind you, between 1949, now we're dealing with 1954, the sit-in had started. And they were doing the exact thing that the voice was telling me to break the law peacefully. And I was working at that time at the Taft Hotel, paying for my ballet lesson. My foot had healed, and I back to ballet at the Metropolitan Opera School of Ballet. And back at Metropolitan School of Ballet and studying 4 to 5 hours per day, I had left the organized man church. My job at the Taft Hotel was to repair things from the roof down to the basement. And that night, it was New Year's Eve, 1954, I had to go up to the ceiling, to the roof. Taft Hotel is standing there now, it's under another name. As I approached that top and got on the ceiling, something hit me again. So you had to go back to the church. And now I was working from 4 to 12 at night. As this thing hit me, a great sound came up. It was New Year's Eve night, 1954. Times Square people filled that area, back to that area. And I'd say, they're shouting for me. No, it's not. It's 12 o'clock. They're shouting for the new year. I went and joined Mother Zion Church and became active again in the Methodist Church that I had been in all of my life. And the voice was still there. So in the high 50s, about 57 or 58, 59, somewhere in there, I decided to go back to Selma and break the law. I went back to Selma at night. My mother and father didn't know I was in town. They thought I was in New York City. And at night, I went to my old church that I hadn't been in years, that I taught Sunday school in. I was a class leader and everything. Now my position was, you don't go, and the dean of the seminary said, just don't go out and break a law. No. You get a group of people together and tell them what you're doing, and in the spirit that you're doing this in, then you go and break the law. Now, my problem was, how would I get the pulpit to tell these people what I planned to do? Now, in the meantime, I was scared, of course. I went to the church that night. 40, 45 people were there. And they looked and saw me. Dabney, you are in town? When did you come to town? Look, Dabney, since you haven't been here in so long, you used to teach Sunday school here, why not bring us the message? Our pastor is in Boston tonight. Bring us the message. Yes, I'll bring you the message. I reached in my pocket and pulled this text out. And the moment I read, when the law of the state conflict with the conscience of man, the law of the state should be peacefully. I don't know where I got that from, but I had studied the life of Gandhi. I had studied the lives of many other religions. I got it from somewhere, but that's what stuck, and that's what I was using as springboard. People started shouting, no, no. The sit-ins had started around the country. No, Selma is not ready for that. No, no, no. And I finished reading the text, walked out of the church, and walked to the bus station. This was on a Sunday night at 9:30. That was the most heck of a time to go out breaking laws. Snick had told all of us, never break a law alone. Always go out with a group of people in the day. Here I am going at night alone in Selma, Alabama. I left this bus station and went to Carter Drugstore where the white boys hung out. And I was to demand a soda, an ice cream soda at the counter and not move. I got there, they were closed. So I left there and I went to the police station and walked in, and I would like to speak to the chief of police. What you want, boy? I would like to speak to the chief of police. Go back and get him. He comes out, 2 or 3 guys. Now mind you, I'm only a block and a half away from the Alabama River, and they was finding bodies there that had been missing for months and years. I'm 1.5 blocks from there. So my name is Dabney Montgomery. I want to make it clear. I was born and reared here. But God has told me to come back to Selma and break your segregated laws in the name of God and accept whatever punishment you give me. What? It was the perfect situation. The chief had a water fountain for white people only, and another water fountain for colored people only. I'm going to break your law now. And when I drank out of the for white people fountain only, they said, throw him out of there. The cop called me here, and the cop called me here. And they took me and threw me out of it. They didn't arrest me, they threw me out and landed on the street, on the curb about 10 o'clock at night. Here I sat alone. Say, God, I have broken your law as you directed me. Here I am now, alone, here, surrounded by the river, surrounded by the other condition that black, white against black. What shall I do? Give me an angel. Give me direction. I'm sitting on the curb. And as I sat there, pleaded with God, give me direction. Give me an angel. A light come around the corner. A man in a car looked out of the window. Great big black, he wasn't a big black, about 160 pound black man. What are you doing out here at 9:30 at night when everybody go to bed here at 8:30? You sitting here alone. What is your problem? That was the angel. What can I do for you? Say, put me in the car, take me home. And he put me in his car and got me out of that area. Now, mind you, I was only 2 blocks away from a Walker's Cafe owned by a black man. That when the King's movement came to Selma, 2 white ministers ate in the black cafe, and their only sin was to eat in a black cafe. One Reverend Reb was killed right out. The other was beaten so until I had to put him in the hospital. I was only 2 blocks away from that, sitting on that. But I felt for the first time like a man. First time I felt like a man. The people in the church had gone to my father's house and told him that Dab is in town and he's breaking segregated laws. We drove up in front of the house. I saw these cars parked out. That's some people from the church. Knocked on the door. My father, 72 years old at that point, came running. Son, don't do it. He fell on his knees. Never had seen my father on his knees before. And my stepmother was crying. If you do it, son, they're gonna kill you. You'll come here, maybe set the house afire. We don't know what they will do. And they had prayer. And I stood there. One of the ladies that I had great confidence in, she was my Sunday school teacher when I was 10 years old. She came to me and said, go back to New York and pray and you're gonna be all right. So I followed their direction and came back to New York. And in 1 year, 8 months to 1 year from that day, guess who came to Selma? Martin Luther King and his movement. 2 blocks away from where I had given that speech, it became the civil rights headquarters of all the nation. Martin Luther King came to town, and with him, hundreds of other people doing the same thing that I had advocated. And then they decide, let's cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge and march to the capital of the state of Alabama, Montgomery, which is 53 miles away, and let's plead with the governor to do away with segregated laws. I was at home, and I was looking at ABC's production on Hitler killing the Jews. And the announcer said, that could never happen in America. We interrupt this program for a special bulletin from Selma, Alabama. And there, those black people were crossing that bridge, and the sheriff and his hoodlum or whoever were beating those people, knocking them to the ground, putting gas on them. They had gas masks, and all they wanted to do was walk to Montgomery. I saw that, and I knew some of these people. I was on Convent Avenue in New York, in my apartment. I cut the TV off, started packing. I'm going back. And I left, went back to Selma. So I went to Selma, got there at night. I'm back, y'all. I'm back. And at this time, they asked for volunteers because white men were walking through that area that we were meeting with guns and everything. I volunteered to be a bodyguard to Martin Luther King on that road from Selma to Montgomery. They got permission from the federal judge to make that march, and I was one of his bodyguards. One time, during my stay at Selma, we had prayer. Let's go and have prayer meeting on the courthouse step that I had been denied the right to vote. 10 of us marched down to the courthouse in Dallas County. The sheriff came out with a big gun on. We came to have prayer meeting. You ain't gonna have a prayer meeting here. There ain't no church. You go right on there and you have a prayer meeting down there. Sir, we feel sorry for you because the only thing you have to depend on is that gun you have, and it's gonna rot and go back to the earth. We are standing here in truth and God and truth has been here for 1 billion years, and they will be around for another 1 billion years. And we stand here. We are not going to move. In 2005, I live at 245 136th Street. 2005, who knocked on my door with no announcement that she was coming? But Pepita. She brought me a gold, what are these cufflinks? Gold with diamonds, and a tie pin with diamond. Her father had died, and as he died, she had married the other Spanish fellas, and they got a divorce. They couldn't make it together. He made her burn all of my letters and all of my pictures, according to Pepita, and they had separated. And as her father died, he was calling my name, and then he would call the cufflink. And she believed he meant me to have the cufflink. She traveled 8,000 miles to bring those cufflinks to me at 245 West 136th Street. That happened. And 205, I have proof and everything. I have the cufflinks at home. In 2007, Congressman Rangel proposed that all living Tuskegee Airmen be given the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. And it went through. President Bush signed it. And on the 29th of March, they found 300 living Tuskegee Airmen out of the 15,000. They called us to Washington and gave all of us the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. A man came up to me with 3 stars on his shoulder, black, jet black. And he looked me in the eye and said, "I'm standing on your shoulders." They took the original Tuskegee Airmen to the King Memorial that hadn't been unveiled yet in Washington. And what a joy that was. I combined the two movements. Tuskegee Airmen, I was the only one in that group that was in the Tuskegee Airmen that was a marcher with Martin Luther King. And what an exciting yesterday experience that was. King stands there and he has his arm folded. It hadn't been unveiled yet, but they showed it to us. And he's saying with determination, "Don't compromise for freedom. Stand up and be counted." When I was a kid and the Tuskegee experiment, I was obeying orders. I obeyed orders, and I did the best that I never dreamed that this would come up. My wife married me, and she didn't know that I was a Tuskegee Airman until one night we were looking at, there used to be old presentations. I said, "Do you know I fed and clothed all those guys? You are a Tuskegee Airman." We just didn't talk about it for some reason. Don't ask me why. I just didn't talk. She said, "I want you to join." No, she got on my back. "You got to join them guys. They got a chapter here. You got to get out." And I got out. We found the chapter and I joined. That's how I became active. But I never dreamed, as I stood there and fought and went through all of that stuff, that this would be a glorious thing. I was obeying orders day by day. That's all I was, and doing the best that I could. That's all I was doing.